What he really wanted to say was, it's not that testing is dead. It's that, hey, guys, prototyping rapidly and maybe continuously and faster, that's where we're going. And if you're not going to call that testing, fine, don't call it testing. But the truth is, you're always asking questions. You're challenging the interdisciplinary groups in terms of the assumptions. We're testing. We're coming up with a hypothesis. Take your best guess. Well, let's go stop guessing. Let's go get some real feedback from real customers and start accelerating what we do. And so I think test is not dead. It's just, to your question or that paper you mentioned, the definition of what it is to be a tester continues to evolve.
Yeah, completely, and obviously it was a ploy to kind of rattle the cage of the traditional testing world, and it certainly did.
Yeah.
And it just made people think differently about what it is that they do. I mean, testing it certainly is not dead. What may be dead are some of the processes that need to change, right? And I think we're seeing that every day. And as we get closer, as developers get closer to testers, and testers get closer to the business, that whole cycle, changes and decreases and gets brings the communication loop better together. But you don't do that by doing the same thing we always did in the past. Things really have to change, and that's what I see is that what users expect, what business expects, requires a different approach to how we deliver quality, and that just means getting smarter about a lot of things, and getting smarter about reducing the tasks that we really shouldn't be doing. I mean, at the end of the day, you talk to guys like Kosuke Kawaguchi, who's the architect of Jenkins, and he's just saying, this is about relieving humans of the stuff that they shouldn't be doing in the first place. It's automation. Let people use their brains and not waste their time.
Yeah. Can you imagine if we still compiled code by hand?
Right. Exactly.
It's like not inventing the cotton loom. Right. I mean, there's all kinds of things that we don't do. If you see a modern day assembly line, it's 80% robotics putting stuff together. There are where the challenge becomes more complex. If you look at motorcycle manufacturing or automotive manufacturing, it's the areas where there's either an aesthetic judgment or a value judgment about those quality characteristics that are not zeros and ones. That yes, the button works. No, the button doesn't work. That's fine. We can automate those mundane, boring things, but is that button in the right location for how the majority of users are going to use it? And does the button, under certain circumstances, does it render correctly? Does the color turn out right? And why is the button there? I mean, asking questions that go into the existence of why we designed this a certain way.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the area that there could be some argument around this, but the area that will never be automated is user acceptance testing, right?
Oh, sure.
Let's get the accounting program in the hands of accountants and see what they think, right? As far as I know, I can't simulate an accountant today, whether I want to or not. Those are the areas where we need to apply intellect and business understanding on that side of the testing fence, and on the other side, as I've been thinking about it as we've been talking, I do think that everybody who's doing functional testing should be considering how they can automate some of what they do.
Yeah.
And I think the tools out there, and this is not a plug for us, but there are tools out there that enable it to be done a lot easier than it did in the past. You don't actually have to learn C language or even PHP or anything. Yeah. There are ways to do automation without extreme levels of programming, but because you are going to be feeding back to engineers, you should understand how the application works. And there's that's probably fodder for argument. But in my experience, if you're doing functional testing, you really should understand, at least when automation needs to be brought into play, and that's a career path, if you will, for people that hey, what do I do after a year and a half of manual testing?
Yeah. So, like you say, deciding what kind of tester you want to be, and also, does my company need a tester to be that certain way? Your comment about user acceptance testing is kind of funny. I think if somebody comes along and says you should automate your user acceptance test, the minute you automate it, it's now a regression test, which means your previous regression test was probably really incomplete. Because it's like, yep, that's your new regression test. Now what are you going to redefine as the user acceptance test? Because it's not that you're not going to do it again. You just need to go ask the right kinds of questions.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Brad, it's great to chat with you. Is there anything else that you wanted to give a shout out to the STP world on the podcast?
Maybe just to close with the same thought. What we're finding is that if you can figure out ways to test more frequently, it gives you an opportunity to just be a better tester, right? So if you're not spending all of your time building a test, you're spending a time coming up with a good test to build.
Right, yeah.
And different ways to test in different environments for different objectives. All you're doing is making yourself more valuable to the company that pays you every day.
Yeah.
And that I think is the biggest opportunity for testers out there is figure out, just like we just said, what can you do differently? How can you, drive change? Because, everything is changing. There's no question about it. Whether it's mobile, or cloud, or how users are interfacing with your system, change is here. It's a great time to be a tester.
Yeah, it is, and I still see some folks who have a little trepidation about learning new techniques, changing language, changing culture. But there's tons of resources out there. So it's just one of the better communities that I am tuned into, and I think it's free to join the community, and you can jump in some of the tools. The demos are great.
Yeah, we got free everything, so go for it.
Yeah, but there's guys like you and me, and coming to STPCon is a great way to find a great experience, but also this change is affecting the community, and we see it in any one of the conferences. So I'm looking forward to hanging out with you at STPCon, Brad. Thanks for joining STP Radio.
Me too. Thanks, Mark. We'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to another episode of STP Radio. As your host, it's my pleasure to bring these intriguing and engaging conversations to assist you in your quest to become a better software tester. Please be aware that this podcast is a production of the Software Test Professionals organization and is copyrighted and protected via the Creative Commons Share with Attribution non-derivative licensing. For more information, please visit www.softwaretestpro.com. On behalf of myself and the entire STP community, please share this podcast with your fellow testers and developers and managers. Thanks for listening, and be sure to join us on the next episode of STP Radio.